Khan and BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Rajakacharya Stota Shatashishamad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai. Gora Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Gauranga. I was just wondering if there's a book that I can... Okay, thank you so much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 14, entitled The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. And today we are reading text 30. Prajumna Sarva Vrishninam Sukam Aste Maha Rataha Gambira Rayo Nirudo Vardite Bhagavan Uta Prajumna Sarva Vrishninam Sukamaste Maharata Gambira Rayo Nirudo Vardite Bhagavanuta Prajumna Sarva Vrishninam Sukamaste Maharata Gambira Rayo Nirudo Vardite Bhagavan Uta. Please chant. Mataji's, please. Anyone else? Okay. Word for word. Prajumna. Prajumna, a son of Lord Krishna. Sarva. All. Vrishninam. Of the members of the Vrishni family. Sukham. Happiness. Aste. Are in. Maharataha. The great general. Gambira. Deeply. Raya. Dexterity. Aniruddha. Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna. Vardhate, flourishing. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Uta, must. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So this is Maharaj Yudhishthira speaking to Arjuna. He's asking, how is Prajumna, the great general of the Vrishni family? Is he happy? And is Aniruddha, the plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, faring well? Purport. Prajumna and Aniruddha are also expansions of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are also Vishnu Tattva. At Dwaraka, Lord Vasudeva is engaged in his transcendental pastimes, along with his plenary expansions, namely Sankarshan, Prajumna, and Aniruddha, and therefore each and every one of them can be addressed as the personality of Godhead, as it is mentioned in connection with the name Aniruddha. Okay. Om Jnana Timandasya Gananjana Shalakoya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadantikam Vanchikapa Taribhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhievacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavimyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. 1 second, I just have to pull something up on my phone. Okay, so thank you for coming this morning. I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas that I can speak something useful. And last night I was actually getting ready to read, and then I discovered that I had a missed call from Archita Prabhu. So, yeah, he told me to give class. When I was in Mayapur, I was hearing a talk by Rajendra Nandana Prabhu. He's a devotee from San Diego, and he quoted Prabhupada, and according to him, Prabhupada said that preparing for a class, you get the same benefit as 2 weeks worth of reading, because you have to really focus on and know what you're going to say. Okay. All right. So these last descriptions in these last couple days, where like yesterday, when Drutakarma Prabhu was reading the different bad omens that were happening due to Lord Krishna's departure. I don't know about you, but the Bhagavatam is spoken in such a way and translated so perfectly that it kind of like helps us enter into what's actually being spoken. So when I hear the bad omens, it actually kind of like hurts my heart. Like I start to feel like depressed that Lord Krishna is going to leave the earth. Of course, it's a transcendental depression, because it's coming from the Bhagavatam. But the jackals, they're vomiting fire and all these crazy things. It sounds like a horrible nightmare. And Srila Prabhupada wanted us to really enter into the mood of his books. He wanted us to read his books over and over again, each book. And he said that we should know his books like the lawyer knows the law books. So it is said that Krishna is Nava Yovanam, which means ever youthful and ever fresh. So when one goes on, like Prabhupada says in one purport also in Bhagavad Gita, that one can simply read the Bhagavad Gita over and over again, and every time he reads it, he gains a new realization. So this is a few reasons. First of all, this transcendental knowledge is enlivening just by itself. It purifies the heart. But also, another reason is that if one is actually making tangible progress on the path of bhakti like he's supposed to, that's why it's essential to have gyan and vigyan, knowledge and practical application of the knowledge, where one can actually understand the progressive levels of advancement in bhakti and understand what he should do to rise to the next level and what he should avoid that would hamper his progress. And if one is making progress in this way, if one goes on reading Srila Prabhupada's books year after year, to the degree the purification of the heart has taken place by his level of intensity in his sadhana and his submissive service attitude, to that degree his consciousness will become more and more clear year after year. It's compared to, like the darkness in the morning is gradually, the sky is gradually lightened up by the rising of the sun. So in the same way as one goes on hearing and chanting for a sufficient amount of time, his consciousness becomes clear and he is able to actually read from a more enlightened point of view, where he's gaining higher realizations and he's seeing things from different perspectives, although he's reading from the same book. So it's like the Bhagavatam, like Dr. Brad is on the 7th canto now. So once he finishes the Bhagavatam and he goes back and he reads it again, he'll find more and more realization because that purification of the heart is taking place. So there was one letter that I actually read to the devotees when I was in the Holy Dham of Vrindavan, and I would like to read it for you guys also. This was a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Satsarup Goswami in 1972. Many important instructions and points that one can take from this. He says, "It is better to maintain even one devotee than to try to convince others to become devotees. It is the duty of the GBC to maintain the devotees, keep them in the highest standard of Krishna consciousness, and give them all good instruction, and let them go out and preach for making more devotees. Your first job should be to make sure that every one of the devotees in your zone of management is reading regularly our literatures and discussing the subject matter seriously from different angles of seeing, and that they are somehow or other absorbing the knowledge of Krishna consciousness philosophy." So that's just half of the letter. Many important things we can just take from that. The letter in itself is like a Bhagavatam verse and purport. We can speak on it for many days. But one of the things that I wanted to point out was that not only should the new devotees be reading, but also the senior devotees should be giving an example in the management, and it is described that the Kshatriya kings, they weren't standing in the back and letting everyone else do the battle, but rather they were in the front of the army doing battle themselves. So in the same way, the senior devotees should be giving an example and reading Srila Prabhupada's books on a daily basis. And Prabhupada is giving us a set of rules in this letter to read every day consistently. And he's not just giving us rules and regulations just for the sake of following them, but rather he's designed, translated, and given purports to his books in such a way that if one just goes through them attentively and systematically, being very conscientious and introspective, and applies what he reads, then one automatically makes substantial advancement on the path of bhakti. Just like the Bhagavatam verse, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyam Tasto Hibadrani Vidonoti Suritsatam, that Krishna himself purifies the devotee's heart when that devotee has an eagerness to hear his messages. And just like we say almost before every Bhagavatam class, Nashta Prayasa Bhadrashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Simply by hearing the Bhagavatam every day and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that's troublesome to the heart becomes completely cleared out. And I have practical experience of this. Going out on book distribution for many days and then taking a day off and just reading for hours, you can actually experience that firsthand, that your heart is becoming purified and your consciousness it's maybe to some degree becoming more and more broad. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur also explains that one's laxity or one's intensity in his devotional service, such as hearing and chanting, will result in either unsteady or steady devotional service. Correspondingly, to the degree that you're laxed, you'll be unsteady, and to the degree that you're intense, that steadiness will come. So we've been giving a formula in which we can actually rise through the different stages of anartha nivriti, and nishta, and ruchi, asakti, and bhava, all the way up to prema. But we can see that in our specific sampradaya, when one is making progression through the different paths, through the different stages of bhakti, one also is recommended, strongly recommended, in many purports. Prabhupada explains that one has to also transcend just Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and come to the level of Raganuga. This is actually meant for all of us. It's explained in Prabhupada's books. So instead of just, Vaidhi means just following the rules and regulations, just because you have to. You don't really have so much of a taste, but you're following because you know it's good for you. It's the order of the spiritual master. But once someone goes through a sufficient amount of purification, one gains an adhikar, or qualification, to actually relish and absorb the pastimes of Vrindavan. So specifically, not only relish and become absorbed in Vraj Leela, but one will also follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan and the associates of Radha and Krishna. So for those who have attained higher realizations, I beg for your mercy, please give me your blessings, and I aspire to serve you and hear from you. And for those of us who have not yet come to that stage, we have a lot to look forward to, and it's really exciting. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also explains how simultaneously one should perform one's devotional service with his external body, his physical body, while simultaneously intensely desiring Raganuga, intensely desiring to enter into the mood of the associates of Vrindavan Dham. And to that, I want to read one more thing. This is from Prabhupada. He's giving us the formula how to actually quickly rise to that platform. So if anyone is interested in making advancement, one should be attentive of what I'm about to read. So first of all, Prabhupada says that it's out of intense greed, lolium, that one can attain this higher platform. And first, devotional service is, like I was saying, rendered in accordance with the regulative principles. And then one should come to the spontaneous, loving service of the Lord. So Prabhupada is recommending each and every one of us to come to that platform. And he further describes in one other purport. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says the first stage is technically called sadhana bhakti, or devotional service and practice. The result of sadhana bhakti must be ecstatic love, attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is also called prema bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada, in the next purport, or the next verse I'm about to read, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains how to quickly get there. And he explains that if one does not understand in the beginning, but continues to hear again and again, the wonderful effects of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes will bring love for Krishna. Gradually, one will come to understand the loving affairs between Krishna and the gopis and other associates of Vrindavan. Everyone is advised to continue to hear over and over again in order to greatly benefit. So we cannot make progress just by our own strength. It's not merely by determination or austerity or being strict. In it of itself, one first of all has to attain the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And like Jutta Karma Prabhu was quoted yesterday, that song from Narottam Das Thakur, that if one wants to understand Radha and Krishna, one first has to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And the external manifestation of Lord Nityananda is the spiritual masters. So by serving the Sankirtan mission, serving the spiritual master, it is the quickest way to get there. It was pointed out to me when I was in Mayapur, Bhima Prabhu, who is the BBT trustee of all of India, I think, he was explaining in a class, he was asking the devotees, have you ever seen the... Sorry. He was asking, have you ever seen the logo of the Gaudiya Math that Bhaktisiddhanta set up? The logo is actually, it's like a square. Within the square there's a circle. At the top of the circle there's Lord Chaitanya. And then on the left there's deity paraphernalia for worship. And there's Lakshmi Narayan. And then on the right there's the mridanga and the printing press. And there's a Radha and Krishna. So he was also explaining that that just goes to show Vaidhi leads, also explained by Prabhupada, that Vaidhi leads to Vaikuntha, whereas if one wants to gain entrance into Vrindavan, one has to come to this level of Raganuga. So it's very exciting when we read these things. Spiritual life is not supposed to be static or stagnant. It's supposed to be ecstatic at every step, very exciting. And if one is bored in devotional service, it means that we're probably not doing something right. Maybe we're not applying ourselves properly. So, because Krishna is not boring, how can you be bored if you're chanting Hare Krishna? And Bhakti Dhira Damodar Swami, he's the first sannyasi that took first disciple that took sannyas from Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He was quoting one acharya, I forget who, I can check if you want the reference, but he was explaining that there's actually 4 impediments that keep us from progressing rapidly and keeps Krishna hidden from our eyes. He explains, first of all, attraction to that which is temporary, attraction to the things of this world and our mental concoctions. And 2 is ignorance of vidya, not having knowledge, not understanding clearly, Jiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, etc. And 3 is prestige, wanting recognition and honor, and also fault finding, because when you fault find, it's because you want to feel better than the other person that you're finding fault with. And the 4th one is aparads. So those things are obstructions to the path. And in the 11th canto, the purport, Hridayananda Goswami is also quoting different acharyas, and he is explaining that by offering your works to Krishna, one's mind becomes to some extent purified, and one comes to a preliminary stage of some spiritual awareness. But even though one comes to a preliminary stage of spiritual awareness, he's not able to completely fix his mind on Krishna constantly. So at this point, one should realistically assess one's position and note the lingering contaminations within one's mind. And when one does this, one should also not artificially think himself more advanced than he actually is. And one should not become casual in his practice. And it explains that these two things are very dangerous for a practicing Vaishnava: to become casual in practice, to become lackadaisical, and to also think oneself more advanced than one actually is. That's why it's important to have knowledge, so you can assess where you actually are. And in this way, one should intensify, he explains, one should intensify his devotional service. Just like I was explaining earlier, one has intense devotional service in a steady way, then eventually one can very quickly rise above anartha-nivritti to nishta, whereas if one's lackadaisical, his bhakti is unsteady. So this is a realistic achievement in this lifetime for each and every one of us, is to attain Krishna Prema. It's we can see that from bhajana kriya all the way to prema, the two primary angas of devotional service is hearing and chanting constantly. In Vaidhi stage, we hear and chant for purification, whereas in the more advanced stages, one is actually relishing and absorbing what he's hearing. So in each stage, we're hearing the Panchatattva mantra: Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, and the Hare Krishna mantra. And one is also recommended to hear Bhagavatam on a daily basis. So what we're reading now is the first canto, and Bhagavatam is considered non-different from Krishna. So the first two cantos are considered the Lord's lotus feet, and the 9 cantos are designed in such a way that if one goes through them nicely, one gains sufficient purification till he reaches the 10th canto, which is considered Krishna's lotus face, Vrindavan Chandra, the moon-like face of Krishna. So, and those are describing Krishna's pastimes, Vrindavan pastimes. And going through the 9th canto systematically, one can relish more and more the 10th canto. So I was going to finish the rest of the letter real quick, because I only read half of it. So Srila Prabhupada, he says that, if they are fully educated in our philosophy and they get all the knowledge and study it from every viewpoint, then very easily they will perform tapasya or renunciation, and that will be their advancement in Krishna consciousness. So the first thing is to instruct all your temple presidents and other devotees to read daily, just as we have done in our morning class in Los Angeles, reading 1 shloka each morning in Sanskrit, and reciting it all together, and train the devotees first. Don't be too much concerned for the time being with non-devotees. Now we must fix up what devotees we have got in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Then we will succeed. What good are many, many devotees if none of them are knowledgeable? So I used to wonder actually why we have a Bhagavatam speaker in the morning. I always wondered, why don't we just read the translations and purports from Prabhupada? When that's good, but Prabhupada specifically gave us the system that to have a speaker, because like I was saying earlier, that the speaker has, as he progresses, has more realizations to share, and everybody is an individual, so they have something unique to offer. And also it helps the speaker, when someone is supposed to give class, he has to really study the subject matter thoroughly. I remember when I was a new Bhakta, the Bhakta leader was Yashadev Prabhu, and I used to go into his room like 3 times a week, and he would give me homework to do. I was supposed to study part of Bhagavad Gita, and then I would give a class to him 2 or 3 times a week. And this helped me a lot, actually. It really helped me become more serious in my study. And my spiritual master says that even if the Bhagavatam speaker, according to your calculation, might not be like a very advanced, like Paramahamsa or anything like that, but still, if the hearer is eager to hear, then there's always nectar to find in what the speaker has to share. So in this verse today, Yudhishthira is addressing Arjuna, and a couple of things that we can take from this. First of all, Pradyumna is the first son of Rukmini and Krishna, and Aniruddha is the son of Pradyumna. So Aniruddha is Krishna's grandson, and they're considered Vishnu Tattva, which is pretty interesting, that Krishna expands himself as his own son and his own grandson. But we understand that all living entities are expansions of Krishna, but it's pretty interesting, they're considered Vishnu Tattva. And in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining that Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are the first quadruple expansions of Krishna. And it's really interesting. Sankarshan is Balaram. And Balaram's in a unique position because he's the first expansion of Krishna. But also I've heard that he's non-different from Krishna, but the only difference is that his body is white color, whereas Krishna's body is blackish color, and Balaram holds a plow, whereas Krishna holds a flute, and Krishna's the supreme enjoyer, whereas Balaram assists Krishna in serving him. It's also explained that Balaram expands himself into different items, like the Balaram Mridanga, or things that you use in Krishna's service are considered expansions of Balaram. And it does also explain that Balaram participates in the 4 primary rasas. You know, he acts as the servant, he acts as a brother, as a friend, Sakyam. He's an older brother, so he has some paternal affection also. And also he expands himself as Srimati Radharani's younger sister, Ananga Manjari. So in this way he can actually experience all the 4 primary rasas. And it's also explained that when the residents of Vraja were experiencing separation because Krishna was in Dwarka, that Balaram came back to Vrindavan to give relief to the residents of Vrindavan. And it's explained that Balaram actually has his own set of gopis, and he does his own rasa dance with his own set of gopis. And when Balaram was in Vrindavan, because of his presence and his association, Krishna's gopis were feeling like Krishna himself was there. And in another place in Bhagavatam, this is talking about Pradyumna, Jiva Goswami says that Cupid, or Kamadev, is actually an eternal associate of Krishna, and that Pradyumna is an expansion of Kamadev, or Cupid. And so when I was reading that, the question came to my mind, that if Pradyumna is Vishnu Tattva, and one other thing I'd like to point out, that's what Jiva Goswami said, but other acharyas say something different. They say that Pradyumna is actually an expansion of Sanat Kumar, one of the 4 Kumaras. So, same thing, a question arose in my mind when I read that is, okay, Pradyumna is considered Vishnu Tattva, according to what we read today. So does that mean Cupid and Sanat Kumar are Vishnu Tattva, if Pradyumna is an expansion of them? It seems to me like that's the case. I'm not too sure the details on the subject, but that's what it seems if we read carefully. And so anyways, Pradyumna is the eldest son of Krishna, and he actually married married Rukmi's daughter. Rukmi is Rukmini's brother, so he married the daughter of Rukmi, and had Prajumna from her name was Rukmavati, and from her Aniruddha was born. So another thing when I was reading this verse that kind of stood out was Yudhishthira Maharaj, being a pure devotee, he is setting a nice example for us and showing that his concern for Krishna's devotees. You know, he's asking Arjuna, how is Prajumna? Now, how is Aniruddha doing well? So in Srila Prabhupada's in the letter I was reading to Satsarup Das Goswami, Prabhupada was stressing caring for each individual, Vaishnava, and making sure that they make nice advancement. So one may have in the beginning this, go, go, go mentality of preaching, and this is good. It could be a little bit in the mode of passion, and we understand from in the Bhagavad Gita that devotional service performed in the mode of passion is not really steady. So one should rise to the mode of goodness. So it's a good way to burn off some passion, this fired up mentality of just go out in big numbers and everything. But once one becomes more mature, he can simultaneously have big numbers, big results, but also have a genuine concern for the welfare of the devotees. And the Guru and Lord Chaitanya, they want everyone to become a pure devotee. So the Sankirtan actually means congregational chanting. Congregational means together. All of us going back to Godhead together, not just an individual effort. And on Navadvip Parikrama, there were at some time, at the end of it, the devotees were sharing their realizations, and there was this older Mataji from China, and she had a really heavy accent. She didn't speak English very well, but she had so much realization. She was explaining that the Navadvip Parikrama, she could feel that it developed the bond in her relationship with the devotees, and she came to understand that the movement is meant to not only offer a rose to the deity, but to offer a whole garland, a whole garland of jivas, collectively serving Krishna together. So it's very important to have people in our life that we can trust fully, that we can express our mind to without feeling like we'll be judged. And it might only be one or two or a few devotees in our life like that, but each one of us should have that. I remember hearing also when I was in Mayapur, one devotee was explaining that some leaders in our movement interviewed many devotees, even other leaders, previous leaders in the movement who had difficulties in their spiritual life and deviated to some degree in their practice, and they interviewed them asking what was the main point, what was the main reason why you left. And most of them said because they didn't have anyone to talk to. They didn't have anyone they felt like they can put their full trust in and express themselves to. So if one doesn't have that type of association, it will be very difficult to actually make steady progress. So one should seek that association of advanced devotees one can trust fully, and at the same time one can, once one becomes mature and one is spiritually healthy, one can seek to be that association for others by setting a good example and showing people that we're generally interested in their spiritual progress. Because our goal is to please Krishna, and we can know for a fact that if we read the books, we'll know for a fact that Krishna is most pleased when we help other people come closer to him. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that his desire is that for each member of the Gaudiya Math to be prepared to shed 200 gallons of blood for the spiritual welfare of each individual in the world. So it's a high expectation for us. And one other thing, it's getting kind of late, but I just want to share maybe a couple more minutes, is just keep in mind that Krishna was in Dwarka for many years. And what we're reading, these bad omens that were coming because of Krishna's disappearance, if we could just imagine how the residents of Vrindavan were feeling. Because as we're reading the pastimes of Dwarka, every second that goes by that we're reading, the residents of Vrindavan's heart is feeling anguish and separation. We understand that Yudhishthira and Arjuna are pure devotees, but the residents of Vrindavan have a more intense and more intimate love for Krishna. So if the Pandavas were experiencing some bad omens and some separation, we could just imagine what the residents of Vrindavan were feeling like. And Srila Prabhupada says that we should follow in their footsteps, follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis, who were not declaring that they were seeing Krishna, but were always displaying lolyam or greed to see Krishna and to serve Krishna. And it also explains that the 6 Goswamis were intensely worshipping Radha and Krishna, always intensely worshipping Radha and Krishna in the land of Vrindavan. And there's many ways they were doing worship or puja, serving Krishna, but the direct service that was given to them by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to write books for the welfare of humanity, to propagate the Sankirtan mission. And in the 11th canto, we understand that one with good intelligence worships the Yuga avatar by the Sankirtan movement. And I'd just like to share one more thing. I had the privilege and the honor to be able to get the association of a very great Sankirtan hero and inspiration in my life, Prema Sankirtan, Prabhu. So, very thank you. But just one thing I'd like to share, giving a nice example for us. When we were in the airplane, if anybody has traveled internationally, you'll understand that on the back of the seat in front of you, there's a little TV screen. And you can watch a movie or play video games, or you can see the virtual airplane and see where you are in the world, what continent you're over and everything. So I always turn the screen off because what's the use of having it? And while you're chanting or reading. But Prema Sankirtan Prabhu, and on the other hand, had the screen on with the virtual airplane and the different continents, and he was very attentively looking at the different continents and chanting his japa. And I was wondering what he was doing. So I asked him what he was doing, and he said that he's meditating, that we were over Russia at the time, and he was meditating that each name that he chanted was dropping on the heads of the Russian people. So the books are out there, the holy name is out there, they're having the effect purifying people's hearts. And one thing I'm inspired by is how some devotees in the prison ministry are actually making serious Vaishnavas out of people in prison. Many prisoners now are actually initiated devotees, chanting 16 rounds, following the regulative principles, preaching within prison. Some of them are never getting out. They've created crime where they are in there for life, but they're initiated devotees. They've completely changed. I remember hearing one story, one letter actually from one of them. He was saying that, he was explaining, just by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, the Vaishnava has come to this prison and has saved me from the clutches of material existence. And one such person somehow got a book in there, and then later came out of the prison, and I happened to meet him in Washington State, and while I was distributing books out on the street. And I don't know if any of you have seen an MTV rap video. The younger generation has. But it's the epitome of Kali Yuga. It's someone wearing really nice clothes and jewelry, showing off their stacks of money, surrounded by women in bikinis, and showing off that they're expert at blowing out smoke from marijuana cigarettes and so on and so forth, riding in a nice Cadillac, basically breaking all the four regular principles at every second of the video, and and what they're talking about in their so-called song is breaking regular principles and how cool it is to do so. So I was walking down the street, and there was somehow it was a famous hot dog restaurant, because there was like a line of so many people waiting to get hot dogs. And in front of that, on the street, there was a nice Cadillac. There was a pink Cadillac parked. And there was one such person that you would see straight from a rap video in front of the Cadillac with hip-hop music blasting. And there were a few women next to him in bikinis. And what he was doing was he was selling his rap videos or his rap CDs to people. And normally maybe I would approach the guy if he was walking and he didn't have all his paraphernalia around him. But he was blasting his music so loud that I just thought, okay, there's so many other people, I'll just approach these other people and I'll skip this guy. But as I was walking by, he turned down his radio and he said, "Yo, is that the Bhagavad Gita as it is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Boy, I gotta have one." So, I gave him the book, and he was explaining that he read Bhagavad Gita in prison, and it changed his life. And once he got out of prison, he wasn't able to find one, and I just happened to be there, and he gave me a donation. And this is just going to show that the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are still manifest in this world in the form of Harinam Sankirtan and book distribution. And Lord Nityananda is still going into the most obscure places in the world and helping people come back to him. So if anybody has any questions, please express yourself. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next program. Just thought of Prema Sankirtan, Prabhu. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit? What does it mean? Discuss Prabhupada books in a different angle of vision. Can you say a little bit more about it?
Okay, did everyone hear that? He was asking, can I elaborate what it means to study Srila Prabhupada's books from different angles of vision? So like I was saying, each person has a different perspective of life, has something unique to add to the table. So, but just simply by hearing Bhagavatam in the class in the morning like we do, like Prabhupada set up, each speaker has something different to say, some different perspective. That's one thing. And also to analyze what we're reading. Like I was explaining about Pradyumna being an expansion of Kamadev or Sanat Kumar, two different perspectives. So does that mean that Pradyumna or Kamadev and Sanat Kumar are also Vishnu Tattva? So one should think about what he's reading, maybe even write questions if he doesn't know the answer, and become very introspective. And it's another way. And I'm sure that if you asked other people the same question, they would have something different to tell you. So different angles of saying, yeah. Anybody else? Dr. Brad, one more question.
Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu, full of nice stories and pastimes. I was just wondering, what is the best way to develop a closer relationship with other devotees so that we feel comfortable expressing ourselves?
Yeah. Well, if one reads Nectar of Instruction, also, that verse, famous verse, we all know, by giving gifts. Sometimes we read the same things and we take them as cliche. We've heard this so many times, and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But one should practice that. If one practices what he reads, then he'll experience the potency in the message. So by giving gifts, by receiving gifts, giving prasadam, receiving prasadam, and revealing one's mind and inquiring confidentially. So one has to first of all be humble himself, because without humility one might have too much pride to actually express himself that maybe he's going through some obstacle in devotional service, maybe he might be having difficulty, but you don't want other people to think that you want other people to think that you're more advanced than you actually are. So it's a sign of of false pride, of humility, not being able to express yourself. But if one does express himself to senior devotees that one can trust, that bond, that relationship grows. And one is, everyone, like I was saying, is individual, so one may be more inclined to express himself to one personality, and another person to express himself to another personality. So by one can express himself to senior devotees and see how that person reacts. Like I've had experience revealing my mind to some people, and it had the reverse effect. Actually, they weren't really sensitive where I was coming from, and it created almost like a disharmony. So if one finds that person that one has total faith in and trust in, and understanding that they're not going to tell other people about your difficulties, that they're not going to judge you, one should seek that association. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.